All right, so welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. I want to do whatever. I got a few things here. See how far we get. One thing is someone made a comment on the last Q&A, and last Q&A we spoke about Kabbalah. Right, we spoke about why people shouldn't be learning Kabbalah. If they don't have proper knowledge, right? You can't walk before you learn how to crawl. You can't study higher mathematics, i.e., calculus, without algebra or trigonometry. So even people, quote unquote, learning Kabbalah today, and you got Madonna and others, or Esther, she calls herself. So yeah, it's a totally watered down version. If it's could be there's some Kabbalistic whatever you want to call them, concepts that that may be totally watered down, okay, but you got to be in a certain level, obviously to to learn it. So in any case there was a comment that someone very sorry to disagree. They were polite anyway, but they were very sorry to disagree, my stand over here. Why? Because they claim there's a lot of, even you're going to say there's a lot of opposition, right? There's plenty of opposition to people learning Kabbalah. Kabbalah should never be learning Kabbalah, right? You got to be on a certain level. You have to have a lot of knowledge. You have to have a tremendous amount of knowledge. To learn Kabbalah, you have to be on a certain level to learn Kabbalah. But so this person, disagrees. Why? There are a number of reasons here. One is that it's precisely because, I'm just going to quote what they said, precisely because of this opposition to learning Kabbalah is why so many Jews stop being observant. What now? If I stop with that, I could say that's totally not true, because people are not observant for a million reasons, right? Even if they started out religious, could be a million reasons, right? A million reasons why, right? But the claim, so I'm going to continue because I'm not going to misquote it here. They say so many Jews stop being observant because they don't understand the deeper meaning behind all the mitzvahs, rules, and prayers and holidays. Now, it could be. Now, that I might not disagree with, in the sense that it could be that some people just do mitzvahs by rote. And this we've spoken about quite a bit, that doing a mitzvah by rote, doing mitzvahs by rote is a problem, right? It's akin to spiritual death. We understand it's you're doing things just by being a robot. Okay, I get up, I say these blessings, I wash my hands, I tie the right shoe first, I put on the left one, the right one, whatever, all these different things we do that Jews do on a daily basis. A person can get caught up and be doing them by rote, and just by not thinking on a deeper level. That's true. That 100% is true. But that's not necessarily why they stop keeping mitzvahs. They can stop keeping mitzvahs for any number of reasons. Had a bad experience. They get burnt out. Right now, this could be a reason because they don't understand deeper meaning. That could be a reason. Right? I wouldn't necessarily, if I would have my top 10 reasons, why people stop keeping Torah mitzvahs, this is not necessarily in the top 10. Might be, 8, 9, 10, or after that. But the first claim is that a lot of Jews, even if they're observant, even if they're religious, they don't understand what's behind the mitzvahs. They don't understand deeper meaning. That's probably true, right? I'll give credit there. That is probably true. But that's not necessarily the reason they stop keeping it. Could be, a number of reasons. Could be a number of reasons why. There is a phenomenon today. There is a phenomenon where you do have people that, let's say have a midlife crisis. Midlife crisis meaning that they hit a certain age, they give up Torah mitzvahs. Not for any necessary particular reason. They flake out. They just get burnt out. Right at a certain point, it's becoming, it's a new phenomenon that's happening. Middle-aged people that have kept Torah mitzvahs for years, for many, many years, and then they give it up. Now, obviously, there has to be something, behind what happened. Maybe, there's something that's a catalyst, to what happened over the years. Maybe they were just going through the motions, just decided they don't want to play the game anymore. They were doing it for the family. Now they don't want to do it anymore. Right? Could be. Now, so the person claims, okay, if they understood deeper meaning, then they wouldn't stop keeping Torah mitzvahs. So now, person makes a second claim, right? Obviously, he says you're going to see this in a different light. Yeah, I'm going to disagree, and I'll say why, in a second. So they say, of course, you can't expose someone to the deepest secrets of Kabbalah right away. Okay, that they agree. They agree with my premise. Right? It doesn't mean it can't be taught at a basic level. Now, there are many non-Jews, mostly non-Jews here listening. There are many non-Jews, if they've gone to pray by Chabad, by Chabad synagogue. Let's say they hang out there. They go there. What are they going to teach them? What are many of these Chabad rabbis, well-meaning? What are they going to teach them? Tanya. Right? They're going to teach this book called the Tanya. Very, very hard book to go through. A lot of it is Hasidus. A lot of it's Kabbalah. Would not be the first thing I would tell a JIT, a Jew in training or a Noahide to learn. Extremely difficult. Right? There's a lot you have to know. Okay, they can water it down, give it over, whatever. Right? Right. But he's saying, this person's saying, well, you can't expose them straight away. True. Right? That we agree. But they should be taught at a basic level. Really? Why should they be taught at a basic level? I see super Noahide Ger people that are learning Kabbalah. I don't think they've gone through one tractate in their life. I don't think they've gone through any Talmud in their life. I wouldn't take what they say seriously at all. They're going to quote the 10 spiritual levels, what we call the Sfirot, and they're going to quote this and they're going to quote that. I wouldn't trust one word they say. Because I know they're not getting it from a pure source, A. And B, they don't have the tools to understand it. They certainly don't. There's a lot you have to learn beforehand. So I'm going to call that a big J, big joke. They're going to start quoting these things. I see some of these things, I laugh. That's the first thing I do. I think, come on. Someone trying to give over this information that's never probably really learned in their life or had a proper teacher. Can't take that seriously. Right? But they're going to teach you at a basic level. Why do I have to teach you at a basic level? And so what's the proof? What's the proof the person brought? You see, there are many Jewish groups teaching it today. Now, what would Kaufman say about that? Go on, anyone who knows me, what would I say about that? Who cares? So there are Jewish groups teaching it. Let them go eat kugel. So what? Just because they're teaching it doesn't mean it's right. I had somebody tell me, an Orthodox rabbi tell me, just got rabbinic ordination, let's say a few years ago, and now has his own synagogue somewhere in the States, and he has somewhere in a synagogue that very intellectual, very, very intellectual. And they asked him a bunch of questions about the soul and about different things because they've been reading the book Derech Hashem, the Way of God. Now, it's a very deep book. The Ramchal wrote it very, very deep, right? It's, very much steeped in Kabbalah, but it's all about why God created the world, the purpose of man, purpose of the nations, reincarnation. I gave this class a number of times. I've given it over to Noahide nations, teach people how to give it over to others, teach non-Jews to give it over to others. Right? So this rabbi asked me, reach out to me for different reasons, but one of the questions he had is, oh, by the way, I have this person, comes to my synagogue, and they're asking all these like weird, quote unquote, weird questions. So I said, what type of questions? About the soul and reincarnation, what happens with this, what happens with that. So I said, that's kind of normal. They want deeper explanation. Makes sense. It's a very deep book. So I said, I have good advice for you. So he said, what's that? I said, I think you should read the book. I think you should actually go through it. Take whatever you take out of it. But it's a book I think everyone should go through. Even non-Jews. People thought I was crazy teaching to non-Jews. But it answers a lot of questions. A lot of basic questions. God created the world, purpose of man, purpose of the nations. What goes on in the spiritual world, how the spiritual world works. Okay, a lot of it is steeped in Kabbalah. I brought it down to this world to make people understand at least basically what's going on. Because anyone who has the book, I would tell them, read the book very quickly once, and then sit on it. Then think about it, go through it. Right, but why I give it over? Because this book changed my life more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Totally changed my life. How the inclination works. I wish I would have known this when I was much younger. How things interact, suffering. Oh, that was a big topic there. Why do righteous people suffer? Right? A lot of good topics that people have to know. Religious Jews don't even learn it. So now I got to concentrate on Gemara. I got to concentrate on the Talmud. Maybe I'll get to it one day. But these are basic things. These are basic things. So I would agree, maybe I would agree to a point. You want to learn something like that, have someone take you through, it's one thing. Right, it's one thing. But you're not teaching on a Kabbalah level. I mean, I'm not a Kabbalist. I didn't play one on TV, so I'm not the right one to ask that I learn Kabbalah. Even though I got a blessing many years ago, I should also be able to learn that. But okay, I got time, hopefully. So this person makes the claim, I digress here, the person makes the claim, shouldn't be even taught at a basic level. No. Why should it be taught at a basic level? You're talking about something way up here, even if you water it down, the people are not going to understand it. Now, I do see people who do this. Right? Person says, well, prove as many Jewish groups are teaching. I don't know how many are. I have seen people, speak about it and go very deep and this and that. I don't think it's right. Because I know someone who does it, their main group of people that listen are non-Jews. They're not Jews that listen. Mostly non-Jews. So, I think that's what I'll call a travesty of a mockery of a sham. Because why give it over to non-Jews? If they have a basic education or lack thereof, what are you talking about? High spiritual conflict, concepts. I do it every so often about certain things, but seems to be the main focus. So I say, okay, it depends where a person's holding. Maybe we could argue it depends where a person's holding. Right? But I made a point, and obviously this person either didn't hear what I said or missed the point. And I said I made a point. That one second here. The name of the book again is Derech Hashem, called The Way of God. The point I made was that I spoke to a bunch of families. I was in South America right before Passover. And I spoke in Spanish, spoke in Hebrew because they all understood it. Many of them understood Hebrew. And I spoke in English, back to Spanish. And I spoke about Passover. And I spoke about deeper meaning of Passover. Now, when I spoke to them, most of these Jews, how did they become interested in Judaism? Because there's a Kabbalah center. There was a Kabbalah center in Santiago in Chile. That's how they got interested in Judaism. So I spoke for about 2 hours. You can't imagine I could do that, but I spoke for 2 hours. They ate, took a break. different things. And at the end, I mentioned one thing. I told them I wanted you to know that everything I gave over today, when I spoke, about deeper things that are behind the exodus from Egypt, not about Kabbalah. I spoke about different things, about Midrashim, the Talmud, other things. So when I spoke at the end, I made it very clear. I said, I want to show you that the Torah is very deep. That the Torah is very deep without Kabbalah. Now, the problem is, people don't get so deep. They'll take things at face value. Maybe they learn other things, whatever it is. But the statement to say, now this is, a bomb of a statement, that so many Jews stop being observant. Obviously, this person has experience. That's my assumption. Right? But they're claiming many Jews stop being observant because they don't understand the deeper meaning behind all the mitzvahs. Now, anybody listening today, found me however they found me, got into learning about Judaism, either wanting to convert, not wanting to convert. You know why? Because they searched. They wanted information. There is a lack, I would agree. There is a lack, certainly in what I'll call the ultra-Orthodox community, not the yeshiva, not the Hasidic community, where Torah can be dry. Prayers can be dry, right? Some of my Hasidic side here coming out saying maybe we should sing and dance a little bit more. Maybe. I think people need that. I think people need to see a deeper side. I would agree. I would definitely agree. There are some people very happy, not necessarily seeing the deeper side. Okay. But this person's making a bomb of a statement. And their statement is, so many Jews stop being observant because they don't understand the deeper meaning. I want to see stats on that. I think there are a lot of other reasons why they stop being observant. One of them could be that, there are issues in their marriage. That could be one issue. Something happened to them, let's say major downfall in different ways, whether it's money, it could be money, could be other things, things they get addicted to. There are many possible reasons. This, I would say, is a struggle. People that are learning, let's say by Baalei Tshuva, returnees to Judaism that didn't grow up religious, I can understand, even converts, many converts become Hasidic, they become Breslov, right? Or they stay Chabad. They don't necessarily become ultra-Orthodox, quote-unquote, yeshivish, and sit and learn long hours and this and that, because it's hard. It's extremely hard. You need to sing and dance a little bit more. You need to be excited about it. It can be very dry, 100%. 100%. That may be true. So there are, converts, and let's say Baalei Tshuva that may gravitate more to this Hasidic leaning because, learning just day in and day out can be dry. Okay, you learn Musar, maybe you learn about, Jewish philosophy, and I think that's what got me hooked many years ago. And Rabbi spoke about Jewish philosophy a lot. So I have a lot of books on that. So that goes through deeper meaning of things. But their claim is the fact that the reason they flake out, many people flake out, is for that reason. I don't know if it's that reason. I don't think it's that reason. I think it's a weakness. I definitely think it's an issue, right? I definitely think it's an issue, but that's not why they're leaving. There can be many other reasons. Many other reasons. Is it a top 10 reason? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think people need to be more excited about Torah. I think they have to know how to learn better, look into things deeper, different things that I would agree. But, people make excuses. And I'm not going to say it's right, because things can happen in a person's life that are traumatic. And even though it's traumatic, in different ways. They'll say, well, see, this happened, I'm done. Now, they're going to have to pay a price also. Doesn't mean what happened to them was okay, but they're going to pay a price also. Someone, let's say they embarrass someone in public. Whatever, kid's 15 years old, for whatever reason, get embarrassed in public, which is similar to murder. So that person says, oh, that's how the head of yeshiva acts. That's how religious Jews act. I'm done. Well, whoever did it, whoever said it, embarrassed them is wrong. Nothing to talk about. Second thing is, that doesn't give the person the excuse to say, I'm out of here. Rebel line should be, well, one said, imagine someone has a bad teacher, in fourth grade. He says, that's it. I'm done with education, right? I'm out of here. I'm going to go get a job. Never happened. Let's say they agree he has a bad teacher. Okay, they'll have to deal with it, right? They'll have to deal with it. But he's not going to opt out. He's going to opt out of education. It might be a downward spiral. It could act out other things. It could be a disaster. True. Right? But he's not going to leave the fold. You're not just going to say, well, I'm done with education. That's not going to happen. Right? But we're very quick looking for a way out. You say, oh, this happened to me. And if we believe in God very strongly, you're going to say, this happened to me. God, why'd you let it? I'm done. Look what you did to me over here. Now, it could be God put it in our way, put it in our path. Or it could be we did it to ourselves, caught up in 614th commandment, don't be stupid. You did something stupid, this is the repercussion. Right? We could have done it to ourselves. We don't know. Or God could have put it in our path for whatever reason. Right? That's what trials are. Right? We've spoken about this a number of times. But just because Jewish groups are speaking about it doesn't mean it's right. It has nothing to do with it being right. That's not proof. Why is that proof? Is it something that's needed? People need to learn things at a deeper level. I would agree. Some people will flock to it. Other people don't necessarily need it. They're very happy learning what they're learning. They're very happy doing what they're doing. Problem is, if you're not immersed in Torah, somebody who works, let's say, okay, when they're not working, they have to go learn. Are they inspired by what they learn? There's a whole learning program where, it's been a whole revolution over the last number of years, of learning, a page of Talmud a week, or, learning, 2 pages a day, but doing it really in depth, going to halacha, the Jewish law, being tested on it, and everything revolves around that. It's changed people's learning. Didn't make them get up and sing and dance more. I mean, it did in a different way, right? That's not learning Kabbalah. It's been a revolution in the Torah world. No question about it. A lot of cities taking this on, people learning. It's a different world. It's a different way of learning. That gets them more into learning. Why? It gets them more into learning because they get into it so much and they have to go through it again and again and again. It becomes like second nature. They know every word on every page because they review so much. And that, it's like they own it. They own their learning. That's a different thing. That's a totally different way of learning. So that's been a revolution. It had nothing to do with Kabbalah. That had nothing to do with learning, deeper books about it and, whatever, right? Not at all. Not at all. That's not an issue. It's not an issue by them. Now, I would agree 100%. Some people need that. Some people need to go much deeper, in order to get a stronger understanding of what's going on in the world. That I would agree. So is it going to be a whole, a whole wide movement? Okay, that's a lot what Breslov does. Breslov itself, without really going too much into detail, they themselves, very much into hisbodedus, let's say going to pray, see God in the field, in nature, in different things. So they're more into, singing and dancing and learning more esoteric things. Right? Learning more esoteric things. But if you were to name me, or let's say better, if I were to name the top 10 rabbinical figures today and how much knowledge they have, they're not coming from Breslov. They're not coming from, Hasidic Rebbe's necessarily. They're coming from our camp, from my camp. Because what's the emphasis? The emphasis of learning day in and day out. Now, again, I would agree. Some people are going to say it's a grind. 100%, it's a grind. You got to be inspired. It's day in and day out. It's not easy. So I would agree. There are people that, it's not going to speak to them. They're not going to get into whether, one thing I'm, learning up north about witnesses and giving testimony, right? So that whole question, someone who's deaf, he can't testify. Why can't he testify? Because the Torah says he's got to speak. Got to be able to speak. So the whole question. So what if he signed on a document? Let's say he wrote testimony in a document. Right? He can't speak. Is that good enough testimony or not? So this is a whole discussion, huge discussion. You think, wow, is that very inspiring? So I'll tell you what the issue is. The issue is like this. This person can't speak. The Torah says, and we learn out just to cut to the chase, the Torah says he's got to be able to speak in order to give testimony. What if he can't speak? What if he writes it out? Is that good enough? So maybe we say if the Torah says he's got to write, if he's got to speak, then it doesn't matter if he writes it out. It's no good. It's invalid. It's a technical issue. Right? The Torah says it's got to be from his mouth. He can't speak. Not his fault, but we reject him. Can't be an aid. Can't be a witness. So that's the whole question. So that's the whole question over here. If we say that a person who gives testimony has to be able to speak, and if he can't speak and he writes it, maybe I'll say it's good enough. Right? There is an opinion that says it's good enough. Right? But everyone else disagrees. Everyone else says if you do it, it has to be through his mouth. Can't be through writing. Right? Because what's the problem? What's the problem? You want to establish, let's say Reuven, they write a star, Reuven and Shimon. They write a document. Reuven says, Shimon owes them a certain amount of money, whatever it is. Right? So they write a document, you have two witnesses sign. Now, what can happen to these witnesses? Right? They might be guarantor. Let's say they're witnesses. We'll make it easy. Right? They're witnesses of this. They see the money go hand over. They're witnesses. Now, what can happen to these witnesses? What are we worried about? We're worried about the witnesses either, could leave, right? For business, they have to go overseas. They're not around. Or God forbid, they die. So how are you going to establish, you're going to tell me I want to establish this document. Shimon's got to pay. Got no witnesses. They disappeared or died. Right? So now the question is, how do you establish a document if they're not around? If that would be the case, then I would need witnesses in my back pocket every second. Right? So what's the problem? No one will ever lend money. No one will ever sign a document. Why not? Because you need to establish a document with an aid, with a witness. The witness is in here, so people won't sign. They won't sign. So everyone agrees that the whole purpose of having witnesses is to have them come and testify. If they can't come and testify, they're overseas, let's say, or they die, right? They won't be able to testify. Dead people don't testify. So what happens with this document? What happens over here with this document? You can establish it with what the witness has signed. So that's good enough. Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees that's good enough. Because you have no choice. Otherwise, people won't lend money. There is an opinion. I don't need that. I don't need to worry about that. The fact that they signed they're not going to be here or not doesn't matter. Right? The minority opinion. We don't hold that way. But what's the case, though? Even that minority opinion would agree Then if the person's a deaf mute, we're going to allow the contract to be established, the document to be established by what? By what he signed. By what he signed on. So that's a huge question. That's a huge thing. Do we say he can't testify at all because he can't speak? Or do we say you're right, he really can't testify, but we have no choice. We'll accept what he said when he wrote it down. Sign language, no. Sign language doesn't work either. I had that question also. Why doesn't sign language work? Even if the judges understand sign language, or one of them understands sign language, what's the problem? I got a verse. Can't go against the verse in the Torah. The verse in the Torah says you got to speak it. You got to say it. You can't say it. Doesn't work. It's no good. Doesn't matter if you sign it. It's not the same thing. Not the same thing. So anyway, so why am I bringing this up? Because this is just something, been discussing over the last week or so. But I bring it up to make a point. For some people, they're going to say, wow, this is so boring. Why would people discuss such a thing? It is on the document. It's not on the document. It changes things. It doesn't sound very exciting, right? It doesn't sound very exciting, right? But if you understand what's at stake and you make it real, right? This is what I've been convinced for years, for more than 25 years. If you take what you learn, you make it real, and it's like life and death. Okay, I have to have an answer. What's the case? I'm the judge, right? You're the judge in this case. What do? You go like this, you go like that. You make it real. Telling someone, okay, this ox gored someone else's ox, and he caused damage. Was it intentional? Wasn't intentional? Did he gore before? You're going to say this all, I don't relate to it. All these laws about get and writing a bill of divorce, it doesn't really speak to me. These other things don't speak to me. There are a lot of people who don't like learning. They find it boring. They want to learn more practical things. Okay. So learn things, they're more practical. Laws of Shabbos, laws of blessing. I mean, there are a lot to speak about. A lot of differences of opinion. How do you do this? How do you do that? Right? So people like to learn more, let's say more practical things. Okay. But even when you're learning more practical things, taxes the brain. Some people say, I don't learn that way. Okay, I'll learn a little bit here. I'll learn a little bit there, but I want to go sing and dance a little bit more. I want to go into the forest. I want to be alone, my own thoughts, and I want to be alone with God and this and that. Okay, there's what to be said for such a thing. The majority of somebody's learning in service to God, not going to be that way. That's not the norm. Now, some people may need to do this on a regular basis. Okay, right? But that's not going to be the norm. So I can understand, all Jewish law, everything that Jews do, what's it based on? What the Gemara says, right? And how, and what the Torah says. So that being out, people are going to have issue with that. I don't want to listen to the rabbis. They're only people, this, that. We're not going to go there either, right? But that's where it's derived from, for better or for worse. So now the whole base of what we do, is based on this. And there are plenty of people who don't like it. They don't get into it. It doesn't speak to them. Right now, if that would be the majority of people, let's say, you have to train them. They have to learn. It's going to take them a long time to understand how it works and all that, and how to understand the text and whatever. You have to learn from someone to teach them. But if that's the case, they can say, it doesn't speak to me. They can say, what, all rabbis are bad that are teaching? From little kids up, got to make it real. It's got to be real. It's got to speak to us. But even if it doesn't speak to us, this is where it all comes from. Right? So I would say, my opinion for what it's worth, I would say if this is the base of everything we do, how could someone not be into that? Again, you want to learn, let's say, the practical laws about Sukkah, right? Sukkah's coming up soon, a couple of weeks, right? You want to learn the practical laws of that. I hear, is this good? Is it not good? What am I looking at when I look at a lulav? What does it mean when I shake the lulav like this? Deeper meaning, I get it. It's more practical. It speaks to us. It's true. That's true. And what happens if you're not into learning? What happens if you don't like learning? If you're a guy, big problem. Big problem. What are you going to learn? Right? The main thing to learn is Talmud. That's the main thing. So, there are people that say, I'll learn a little bit, I'll learn, whatever. I'll learn other things. I'll learn Chumash. I'll learn prophets. I'll learn the writings. I'll learn, Jewish philosophy. I'll learn Tanya, right? I'll learn Hasidus. I'll learn other things that speak to me. Okay. A person has to be grounded in Talmud, that's true. But a person should learn what speaks to them. But you have to know, a Jew has to know what to do practically. So what speaks to you doesn't always help. That can't be the essence of what you're learning. One of the things that Vilna Gaon in Nefesh HaChaim, in the epic book that Rav Chaim of Volozhin, his main student, wrote more than 250 years ago. Most people learn the fourth gate, which is all about learning Torah and the importance of learning Torah. So what does the Vilna Gaon say? Rav Elijah Vilna Gaon railed against Hasidim, railed against them. Why did he go strongly against them? At the beginning of Hasidus. Because he said you could go into a place where they're all Hasidim, you don't even find one set of Talmud there. They're learning Musar all day long. They're learning ethics all day long. Now, what could someone ask? What would be the $2 million question? We're up in the ante here. What would be the $2 million question? $2 million question is, how can they only learn Musar all day? That's not the base of what the Torah is. The base of the Torah is law. It's also about character development. True? 100%. So you got to work on that also. But even we're in the month of Elul, number of days before Rosh Hashanah, what do we have? We're supposed to be introspective the whole month. So you're supposed to learn more than you normally do. You're supposed to work on character traits, different things, right? But nobody says, all I learned during Elul is Musar. Nobody says that. You have to work on character traits, true. Maybe you learn a little bit more than you normally do. Okay. Bottom line, if a person has a certain amount of time to learn during the day, you got 2 hours a day to learn, 3 hours a day, whatever it is. 2.5 hours, you're not going to be spending learning Musar. That you're not going to do. So if you normally learn 20 minutes of Musar a day, so you learn a half an hour. Maybe you learn 40 minutes. You're not spending your entire time. So comes along the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon says, what in the world are they doing? They're making what is not the most important thing to the most important thing, and they're throwing out what the most important thing is. Now, nobody says you can't learn Muslim. No one says you can't learn ethics over here. No one's making that claim. But you're not learning it 20 hours a day. Just the opposite. There were people who learned, talk about Torah giants, they also learned Muslim. 100%, everybody learned Muslim. There's no question. That wasn't the main part of their day. Not at all, not even close. Even by Hasidim today, that's not the main part of the learning. Main part of the learning is Talmud. But at the beginning, it didn't start off that way. And then when things started to mainstream, different issue. They saw that the base has to be learning what the essence of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right? But again, maybe you're gonna say it's not so fun. It's taxing on the mind, true. But I am convinced more than anything else that if a person would see whatever example they're doing, whatever they're learning, and they make it real and they bring it down to this world, an ox scores someone else's ox. Anyone live on a farm today? There are people who live on farms today. Okay. Most people don't live on farms today. So you can say someone damaged somebody else. Their car hit someone else, whatever. You make a case where it's relevant, it speaks to you. Even though the language is different language, but the case doesn't change. Right? In other words, we make it real to show how it refers to us. In our day and age. Now, it's going to be kind of hard. Okay, what do you do with a sukkah? What do you do with a luv and an esrog? Okay, these things are, they're you can't, there's certain things you can't change over here. There are plenty of things you can make a sukkah with. Plenty of things. A luv, it's only going to be certain things. An esrog is only going to be a certain thing. Right? But when you learn about something that's practical, and I do it on a daily basis, or I do it here and I do it there, you learn the laws of Hanukkah, certain places, and the Talmud speak about, one main place speaks about in the Tractate Shabbos, speaks about the laws of Hanukkah. You learn it from beginning to end. So that then Hanukkah is a different Hanukkah. But that's getting the base of why you're doing it. Are there much deeper levels? Yeah. 100%. But you're not learning the much deeper levels so you understand the basics of what you're doing. Right? When do I light? Where do I light? How long does that have to be lit? You have to get the basics, understand what's going on, what's behind it, which I always say, all my conversion classes, it's more important to understand what's behind it than actually what we're doing, because you got to look at the bigger picture. Because then you realize, 5 minutes before sundown, you're running around ripping toilet paper and say, hey, what's going on? Why am I ripping toilet paper anyway? Right? You miss the whole point. You get, like a person cleans for Passover, for example. And you drive yourself nuts cleaning for Passover, and you say, well, I guess, the slaves in Egypt, what they went through, so we're also slaves, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You got to understand what's behind it, right? Non-Jews, no different, right? Even if they don't convert, they also have to understand, why they do what they do, and what's behind it. Plenty of deep things non-Jews can learn, in Jewish philosophy and all that. But again, the question was, and Kabbalah is not for non-Jews. Definitely not for non-Jews and not for most Jews, right? So the person said, see, I know you're going to disagree. You're right, I disagree, because people can't learn it. They're not a vessel to learn it. Forget about it on a spiritual level. They're not a vessel to learn it. They don't have knowledge. They don't have enough knowledge. You have to have enough knowledge before you learn it. You can't push the cart before the horse. So I would agree, maybe that, there are some, teaching today, but why are they doing it? Maybe they're afraid they're going to lose people, or they're going to say, well, people have this desire. They have this desire to learn, to learn things in a deeper way. Okay. Right. So, I give a class, not going to be this Sunday because it's going to be Rosh Hashanah, but any of my class I've given on the book of Leviticus, right? You talk about saras, a person will call it spiritual cooties for lack of a better term, right? What did a person get spots on their body? Because they spoke Lashon Hara. So there's a lot written, but you look at the laws of purity and impurity and why it happened and this and that. So a person can say, well, it's kind of dry. What's really behind it? Oh, right. There's a lot behind it. I gave a class on Sunday where chapter 16 spoken about, what do you call it? The two he-goats by Yom Kippur. Right? Last number of weeks. And these classes are more than 2 hours apiece. So here, if my math is correct, how many classes I've given on the book of Leviticus chapter 16? 32. Or actually more than that. I think it's like 62. Right? I might be wrong there. Let me let me just double check then. It's definitely more than 30. Right? It's definitely more than 30. But what's the point? Okay, so get sidetracked. Bring in other things, but the point, but the point over here is that you can look at what the verses say. You can see what the commentaries say. And the commentaries are explaining things in a certain way that are bringing it, explaining simple explanation like Rashi would. Explaining on a, let's say on a deeper level, right? Let's say according to the Medrash or, other things. And you're looking at it in a totally esoteric way. Now, by doing so, that has nothing to do with Kabbalah. right? That has zero to do with Kabbalah, right? So when you see something like that and it's in a deeper way, so the Torah is very deep. There are 70 ways to look at the Torah, probably more, right? And to understand it, to totally understand it. There's a lot there, right? There's a lot there. Sorry, part 33. It was part 33. So I've given 33 classes on chapter 16. I'm only chapter 16, verse 11. That's as far as I got, right? So I can tell you, the week after Rosh Hashanah is going to be a class, and I'm not going to get past verse 12 because there's a lot there, but there's a lot of esoteric things there that have nothing to do with Kabbalah. That's the point, right? So if somebody sees that and they say, wow, they say, Rabbi, you can take anything that's dry and make it interesting. Maybe. They'll say maybe just a knack that I have, right? But people want to see and people want to understand. They want to understand things at a deeper level. Because at face value, a lot of things in the Torah, more than 80% doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense. Now, non-Jews got a problem because they only have King James Version, which changes a lot of the verses because it doesn't fit their world outlook to Christians. So they got to relearn everything. And everything they learned was wrong. But you're going to say, okay, even learning something, you're going to say, okay, the two he-goats, what's Azazel? That's a whole discussion, right? What type, is it a sacrifice? It's not a sacrifice. It's really idolatry if you say it's Azazel. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. Just at face value, there are a lot of questions. So, I think the point, of that class and others as well is to show, there's a heck of a lot more that's deeper. You have to understand what's going on, right? And even I just threw out this idea, about testimony and this deaf mute and how can he testify to that? The person can say, well, I tuned out for that because that's boring. That doesn't speak to me. But it's a wild question, right? It's a wild idea. Testimony you should be able to give. But he can't speak. So if he can't speak, let him write it. But if he writes it, the Torah says he's got to speak. So what do? Practically speaking, what do? You don't allow him, right? He can't speak. He can't speak over here. But everyone would agree that you have no choice. You have to do it through writing. Now, some people say, wow, that's interesting. Other people say, oh, that's totally boring. Okay. Right? But, you can almost take anything if you make it real and you set it up in a certain way, not boring over here. Now, I would agree. Maybe not everyone can do that. Maybe everyone has to, you have to get to the deeper meaning first. But you have to know how to talk to people also. So I would agree at a certain level that people need to see deeper meaning. That's true. That 100% is true. No question about it. But I don't think that's top 5 reason why, why Orthodox Jews who started Orthodox don't stay Orthodox. I don't think that's the reason. I'm not sure it's even a top 20. I'm not, I don't know exactly where I categorize it, but I don't think it's the most pressing issue. A lot of other issues, many other issues. I think it's important. I would agree. 100% I would agree. It's important to understand what's behind it. True. 100% true. 100% true. Is that the main reason why people going off and need to learn Kabbalah? No. Right? That would be my answer to that. I see there are a bunch of questions. I ain't going to be limited in time here. So, someone asked before that Chief Rabbi of England was in Westminster Abbey, was a church. So some people make the distinction of different places in Westminster Abbey, whether it's the church or, I don't know. I think Rabbi Sachs made some distinction, wanted to say, why it should be okay. I'm not exactly sure. Just understand one thing. The Chief Rabbi, of England does not represent world Jewry here. He may be an Orthodox Jew, He may be quote unquote an Orthodox rabbi. He's got a lot of flaws. Right? You're gonna say, well, we all have a lot of flaws. Why are you gonna pick on him? Right? I'm gonna pick on him for a number of reasons. One, it's because he said it's okay to teach homosexuality in yeshivas. That's a problem. Right? I don't care if it's a political appointment. I don't care if the ultra-Orthodox Jews in England don't hold of him. He represents quote unquote Orthodox Jewry. Right? How can he say that's okay? Problem. I mean, there are a number of other things he said. So I'm not going to really take what he says or what he does really that seriously. How can he walk into a church? I don't know. I got to ask him. If it's a church, if it's 100% a church, there's not anything else going on in there. It's a proper church, which that's what it sounds like. That's a problem. I think by Lord Jacobowitz, of blessed memory, Rabbi Jacobowitz, I don't think he walked in there. I'm pretty sure he didn't. But some make a distinction between that and some other place of the church. I have to re-see what they said. Why they said maybe it's okay, right? But if it's got the status of a church, you can't go in, right? You can't go in. People make certain exceptions. I don't know. I don't know. The Queen of England. I'll give an example. Mary once told me this. I spoke in a class. I'll just throw out there. His brother-in-law is Diane Ehrentroy. He used to be the head of the London-based, and he had to meet the Queen for whatever, I don't know, whatever it was. What does the Queen do? She sticks out her hand to shake her hand. So he claimed she had gloves on. It's a fish handshake, nothing intimate, be okay. Right? He claimed there was nothing wrong with it. Other people said not that way. My Rebbe, even though his brother-in-law, said not that way. Some would say you have to give up your life. The Chazon Ish would say you have to give up your life in order not to do such a thing. Right? You have to bow something. You can't take her hand. I bet it's the Queen. I don't know. You got to get out of it somehow. My Rebbe said clear, 100% clear. I can see him saying it right now. Forbidden. That's it. You're not allowed to. I just wearing a glove. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right now, again, what did Diane Ehrentroy say that he held it was permissible? I don't know. Right? He said wearing a glove is, it's not the hand, it's not a real handshake. It's, you're barely touching. I don't know. If you're not allowed to touch, you're not allowed to touch someone who's forbidden to touch. Right? So that would be an issue. Right? Might be an issue. So if it's really going into a church, that's a problem. Right? That's a problem. Someone asked about putting on shoes. Yeah, so that doesn't apply to non-Jews. Definitely apply to Jews, right? You put on your left shoe for a right shoe first, and you put on your left, tie your right one first, right? I think that's how it goes, right? You put on your right shoe first because that's your stronger side. Most people's stronger side. So you start with the right shoe first, put on your left shoe, and you tie your right shoe first. That does not apply to non-Jews. Why is it done in that order? I don't know. Right? I have to give you an answer on that. Should I know how I'd follow it? No. Absolutely not. No, not at all. Can a Jew abstain from learning Kabbalah completely and live an Orthodox life? 100%. 100%. Can an Orthodox Jew live a vibrant Orthodox life without studying Hasidus? Yes. Not even a question. Right? Not a problem. Someone asks, would Breslov be good for a Noahide to learn from? Depends which aspect. There are people that only learn from Rabbi Nachman's books. Someone, gave me a lift. I was up north yesterday. Someone gave me a lift to tell me he's going to Uman, and he's telling me about this whole deep thing that this rabbi wrote about one story of Rav Nachman. It's going on and on. Okay, interesting thing, and adapt and this. Okay. That's what they learn. Chabad, a lot of things they learn is about what the Rebbe said. Okay. But you got to be proficient in other things also. Not saying even by Breslov they don't have Talmud, they don't learn Talmud. I'm not saying that. Right. But there is what to be said for learning, what your rabbi says and what, etc. But that's not the only thing you learn. That's an argument against Chabad also. See, the whole point is we want to perpetuate and have rabbinic scholars for the next generation. If you're going to have people just learn Hasidus, books from Rabbi Nachman. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. But if that's the main thing they're learning and they're singing and dancing, that's not going to perpetuate and make them into rabbinic scholars. That's all you can say, okay, I'm ultra yeshivish and 100% believe in the system. And yeah, I'm not saying there aren't flaws. It's not a perfect system. Because not everyone enjoys learning, as we mentioned. But the point is that has to be the main focus. Not saying you can't learn other things. And you can't get excited about other things. But if you make the other things the main focus, let me ask, how in the world are you going to be able to pass that down to the next generation? How's Torah going to be passed down if you're not learning the most important thing? Got to learn Chumash and Rashi. Right? You got to see what Rashi says in the Parsha. You got to learn that. You got to learn Jewish law. You got to see where it's derived. I mean, I'm not saying you can't learn these other things. In proportion. You have to see things in proportion. Problem is, things have gone totally out of proportion. Oh, I don't like learning. I'm going to get into this. I'm going to get into Chassidus. Okay. There's what to be said to be inspired in this and that. I'm not saying not. Not saying not, but you cannot take something that is, I'm not going to say extraneous, but you can't take something that's, it's not the most important thing and make it the most important thing. That you can't do. That you're not allowed to do. And that's why, you won't see Torah giants coming from these communities. They might be knowledgeable, a certain level of knowledge, but you're not going to produce Torah giants that way. It's not going to happen. And a lot of Hasidic yeshivas today are learning very much like the Lithuanian yeshivas. Doesn't mean they don't sing and dance and, learn other things also. But their main focus, is learning Talmud. That's the main focus. That's what the main focus has to be. Someone asked, is it forbidden to pray, difficult to concentrate? When it's super hard to concentrate. Normally we say mitzvahs don't need intention. Certain things in prayer need intention. First line of the Shema, right? First 3 paragraphs of the Shemona Esrei, silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, right? But if we would say, wow, I can't concentrate, I'm not in the mood, whatever, I shouldn't pray, I shouldn't keep mitzvahs, right? Then no one keep any mitzvahs. Because really, mitzvahs don't need intention, right? And the rabbis understood, if we say need intention, no one will be able to do anything, right? So, a person, the most important thing in prayer is clearing your mind. That's the most important thing, is clearing a person's mind. Once you do that, then you can pray. But you say, but I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about the other thing. True. Very, very true. Right? But you can't get distracted either. So, even if you can't concentrate, you got to work hard to try and concentrate. That's what you got to do. And if you're a guy, it'd be 10 times worse. You got to pray 3 times a day. So what are you going to say? I can't concentrate. I'm too tired. I'm this. Who cares? You get 4 hours of sleep. You got to get up and say slichos, all these penitential prayers. You want to say it late at night. You want to say it early in the morning. Your head's not there, whatever. Maybe you're going through the motions. Okay. You still got to say it. You'll get credit for saying it. Might get a C- or a D+. You still got to do it. But if your mind's totally out to lunch and this and that, maybe I'd say no. But you still have an obligation. Right? You can't push away the obligation. You got to work on that. But a lot of times you're right. We don't feel like praying. We don't feel like doing a lot of things. Life beats us down. So what do? You say, shut up and eat the mati. You still got to do it. You still got to do it even if it's hard. So you got to figure out ways how to get out of that funk and refocus, which is not an easy thing. Definitely not an easy thing. Let me see any other questions. Someone mentioned about a lot of Christians becoming Noahites. Only because they have questions about Christianity. It doesn't make sense, right? So either they're going to convert or stay Noahites. Either way, even though the hardest thing is to give up JC, that they're going to fry in hell forever, but eventually they get over that somehow. The question is, it's so used to loud music and singing this and that. Yeah, you're right. I see sometimes, I don't know, whatever. I see these things where people up, dancing in the rows and this and that. Okay. That's great. So they're doing it for a lie. At least if we dance. I just saw something in a synagogue in Woodmere in New York. There's a rabbi there, whatever, who was basically Hasidish. And he's got a lot of, modern people in his synagogue. And I'm not saying he turned them into Hasidim, but he gave much deeper meaning to so many things. So Saturday night at Slichas are all, they had a certain tune that they were singing. It was a place, but that would be 100 people there, more. It's late at night, right in the middle of the night. And it's like the place is rocking. And you see plenty of people there, black hats, some are, dressed up as Hasidim and others not. And that place, 100%, I was like, that was inspiring. That was rocking. They were singing, whatever. And, as part of all these penitential prayers. And, the place was rocking. So, okay, this person's Hasidish, but what has he done? He's transformed the whole place over the years. First time, I've heard him speak a number of times. His name is Rabbi Weinberger. You can look him up. Rabbi Weinberger in Woodmere, New York. Eish Kodesh is the name of the synagogue, right? Fire, right? Holy fire, as we call it. So he's transformed the place because he's brought a lot deeper meaning to people that are, would look at things more, let's say, in an intellectual slant, or maybe doing things robotically. And he's broken that because he's just given over so much of himself and, and so many classes and different things that, it's catchy. When you get up to Friday night and, Chadodi and some of the stanzas, people are, people are dancing, whatever, it puts you in a certain mood, right? Certain tunes put you in a certain mood. It's tremendous, right? Is that going to be in a regular quote unquote Lithuanian place? No, not going to be like that, right? Where I happen to pray, on Shabbos and high holy days, the yeshiva, mostly English speakers or parents or, English speakers or whatever, that place is rocking, Friday night, they sing, they don't dance, but whatever, it's, they got beautiful tunes and whatever, it's a beautiful thing to see because, prayer in general could be very dry, 100%, right? So this person is taken modern Orthodox Jews, brought them to a different plane through Hasidus. It certainly can be done. But this person, I would agree, when you're teaching deeper meaning and deeper things, it sticks more. When they have more understanding, have better understanding. That is definitely true. I think there's some people that just not into it. They just don't, they grew up with Torah mitzvahs, but they find it very dry and they're not gonna take to someone singing and dancing. That's not gonna speak to them. Okay. Right. Some people are gonna be, tough nuts to crack, over here. There are people that don't say, someone that points out, well, they pray, they're not feeling it. You're right. Prayer is something the Talmud says always needs to be strengthened. It's not an easy thing. Sometimes we think we're praying to a wall, right? And whatever Noahides do in their prayer, they'll have it worse, right? Because it's not formal per se, right? So for them, it's worse. But guess what? I would tell people like this, think about all the difficulties that King David went through in the book of Psalms. Think about difficulties we have. Do we compare to him? No. We have difficulties. Not going to say not. Definitely have difficulties, right? But all he did was sing and dance and praise God. That's what he did. He said, God, you put me in this. I understand. I don't deserve it. You're going to take care of my needs. And whenever he overcame everything around him, which is something we speak about a lot, he's able to do that. He's being chased by Saul, being chased by his kids, and he had to fight all these wars. He didn't have an easy life by any stretch. So I would say if a person's down and you think you have life is hard, just pick up a book of Psalms. Just go through the book of Psalms. Just see what he says. Right? So you're going to say, but it's very hard, right? I had an epiphany the other day. I mentioned this last week. I had an epiphany the other day. I saw, someone's mentally challenged, can barely walk, other things. I'm like, you think you got problems? Gotta be thankful. Gotta be thankful for every last thing we have. But life is hard and beating you down. You're right. 100%. 100% can be totally discombobulating. They can give a person, heart attacks, different things, because life is hard. You're right. And the question is how we view it, how we see the bigger scheme, in the bigger scheme of things, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. But if we're in tune just, a little bit, I'm not going to say all these things go away. Definitely not going to say that. But at the same time, it makes things a little bit easier. There are a lot of questions here and I have to run, but I'm gonna stop here. I do apologize. I'll take any of these questions, write these down, take any of these questions next week. On Thursday. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or you can send me an email at rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman@gmail.com.